Hey gang, I'm Fahaam, your financial freedom guru. Let's turn your dreams into billionaire success stories. Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of the most controversial, ruthless, yet undeniably fascinating figures of America's Gilded Age. His name was Henry Clay Frick, a man who rose from almost nothing, carved his empire through sheer determination and a willingness to take risks others would never dare, and ended up as one of the wealthiest industrialists of his time. His story isn't just about money, it's about ambition, power, conflict, and legacy. It's the kind of story that shows us the heights and the costs of chasing financial dominance. If you're chasing financial freedom, buckle up, because Frick's journey is one of the most extreme examples of what it means to play the game of business at the highest level. Henry Clay Frick was born in 1849 in West Overton, Pennsylvania, to a modest family with no silver spoons or gilded cradles. He wasn't born into wealth or prestige, but he did have sharp instincts, a relentless work ethic, and an iron will. He left school at 16, and while that might sound like a dead end for most, for Frick it was only the beginning. He joined his grandfather's distillery, where he got his first taste of business and the power of controlling resources. But what set him apart was that he didn't want to be an employee, he wanted to own, to build, and to dominate. At just 21 years old, he saw an opportunity that others overlooked. In western Pennsylvania, coal and coke being a fuel made from coal used in steelmaking, were everywhere, but no one had really scaled the business. Frick and his cousins started their own company, using borrowed money and sheer grit to buy land and coke ovens. By 30, Henry Clay Frick had become a millionaire, a self-made magnate in the coke industry. Think about that, in a time when most people lived paycheck to paycheck, he had already built an empire. This wasn't luck. It was his vision, his ability to see a future where coke would be the backbone of steel production, and his willingness to outwork and outmaneuver anyone in his path. But his story wasn't just about making money, it was about making powerful alliances. And in business, alliances can make or break you. Enter Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men of the era and the king of steel. Carnegie saw Frick's coke empire and knew he needed him. Steel couldn't exist without coke, and Frick controlled the market. The two men joined forces, and Frick became the chairman of Carnegie Steel. Together, they revolutionized steel production, laying the foundation for modern America, skyscrapers, railroads, bridges, all fueled by their empire. Yet behind this partnership was tension, and behind the wealth was controversy. Frick was known as ruthless. He cut costs mercilessly, pushed workers to the limit, and crushed unions with an iron fist. The most infamous example was the Homestead Strike of 1892, when workers at one of Carnegie's steel plants went on strike demanding better wages and conditions. Frick refused to give in. He hired Pinkerton agents, armed guards, to break the strike. What followed was one of the bloodiest labor conflicts in American history, with violence, deaths, and chaos. Frick survived an assassination attempt during this period, when an anarchist shot and stabbed him in his office. And despite being gravely wounded, he returned to work almost immediately. To some, this showed his toughness, to others, it revealed his inhuman coldness. Either way, it cemented his reputation as one of the hardest men in business. But here's the twist. While Carnegie became the more celebrated industrialist, it was Frick's business acumen and relentless strategies that fueled much of their success. He was the one who managed the day-to-day, who made the harsh calls, who kept the empire profitable even when others hesitated. Eventually, the tensions between Carnegie and Frick boiled over. Their partnership ended bitterly, with lawsuits and personal hatred. Frick walked away, but he didn't walk away empty-handed. He secured an enormous fortune from his share of Carnegie Steel. When J.P. Morgan later bought out Carnegie Steel and turned it into U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar corporation, Frick walked away as one of the richest men alive. By then, Henry Clay Frick had gone from a farm boy to a titan of industry, his name synonymous with wealth, power, and ruthlessness. But like many of the Gilded Age tycoons, he didn't stop with business. With immense wealth comes the desire for legacy, for something beyond money. And Frick found his legacy in art. He became one of the greatest art collectors of his time, purchasing masterpieces from European old masters, tapestries, sculptures, and rare furniture. He transformed his New York mansion into a private museum, filled with treasures that today form the world-renowned Frick Collection, one of the greatest art museums in the United States. Even now, more than a century later, people visit and admire what he built, not in steel, but in culture. But let's not forget the human cost of his empire. Frick's name carries controversy because while he built immense wealth, thousands of workers labored under brutal conditions for pennies. The Homestead Strike remains a stain on his legacy, a reminder that the pursuit of financial success can come with moral compromises. And yet, this is exactly why his story is so powerful. It forces us to ask, how far are we willing to go for wealth? What sacrifices are justified? And can legacy redeem ruthlessness? Frick lived until 1919, passing away at the age of 69. By the time of his death, his fortune was immense, and his name was etched in history. He had transformed industries, fought battles, created enemies, and left behind one of the greatest art collections in the world. His mansion became a museum, ensuring that his name would live on long after his industrial empire faded. He was remembered as both a builder and a destroyer, as a patron of the arts and an enemy of labor. So what can we, seekers of financial freedom, learn from Henry Clay Frick's journey? First, his vision. He saw opportunity where others saw nothing. While most people ignored coke ovens, he saw the foundation of the steel industry. Second, his partnerships. Aligning with Andrew Carnegie gave him access to unimaginable growth. Sometimes, teaming up, even with rivals, can create something far bigger than what you could achieve alone. Third, his resilience. Frick faced strikes, assassination attempts, lawsuits, betrayals, and yet he kept going. That ability to push forward in the face of chaos is something every entrepreneur needs. But here's the cautionary lesson: money without conscience creates scars. Frick's ruthless approach earned him fortune but also hatred. He is remembered as much for conflict as for his wealth. Henry Clay Frick's story is a reminder that financial freedom comes in many forms. For him, it was about empire building, dominance, and leaving a legacy that outlived him. For us, it's about learning from his example, both the brilliance and the brutality, and shaping a path that creates wealth without losing humanity. Because at the end of the day, true financial freedom isn't just about billions in the bank, it's about building a life and a legacy that you can be proud of. And that's the journey of Henry Clay Frick, the farm boy who became a coke king, the steel baron who shaped America's industrial age, the ruthless businessman who left behind a cultural treasure. His name might divide opinion, but his impact is undeniable. His life shows us that financial freedom is possible, but it demands vision, resilience, and choices that echo far beyond your lifetime. So as you chase your own financial goals, ask yourself, what kind of legacy will you leave behind?